It all started with a fishing rod, a thermos of coffee, and a quiet morning by Willow Creek Reservoir, a public lake just outside my sleepy town of Riverton, Oregon. It was July 7th, 2022, and I was savoring the sunrise, the water lapping gently against the shore, when a voice sliced through the calm like a knife. "Excuse me, sir. You need a community permit to fish here." I turned to see Margaret Voss, the HOA president, standing there with a clipboard clutched like it was her last lifeline. She was 55, impeccably dressed in a navy blazer at 6 a.m., her hair pinned up like she'd been plotting this ambush since midnight. Her voice had this odd quiver, like she was trying to sound authoritative but was barely holding it together. I showed her my state fishing license valid, renewed just weeks ago, even laminated because I'm particular about my paperwork. But Margaret didn't even glance at it. Her eyes kept darting to the dense reeds on the north shore, and her hands shook as she scribbled out a $500 fine. $500 for fishing in a public lake. I was livid, confused, and, honestly, a bit impressed by her nerve. But instead of paying up or arguing like a sane person, I decided to do something wild that would unravel her world. What began as a petty feud over a fishing fine spiraled into a revelation of secrets buried for decades, secrets that would shake Riverton to its core. Margaret's behavior was off from the start. She kept checking her phone, muttering, "Not today, not July 7th, like the date was cursed." Then she said something that sent a chill down my spine. "They can't be disturbed." She caught herself, backtracking to her permit nonsense, but I wasn't buying it. Who was they? There were no nesting birds, no protected species, no signs warning of environmental hazards. Just a quiet lake and those reeds she couldn't stop staring at. Stranger still, she said my name Ethan Carter like she knew me. We'd lived in this neighborhood for 4 years, never exchanged more than a nod. Yet she said, "Carter family," like it was a ghost from her past. Her face paled, her breathing got shallow, and she couldn't hold eye contact. This wasn't just HOA overreach. This was a woman terrified of something much bigger. I paid the fine to avoid a scene, but my gut told me to dig deeper. I set up a small trail camera in a tree near the reeds, thinking I'd catch fish patterns or maybe see what had Margaret so spooked. That night's footage changed everything. Someone was out there at 2 a.m., measuring the reeds with professional surveying gear. When I zoomed in and saw it was Margaret, my blood ran cold. Why was she measuring a patch of dirt in the dead of night? I wasn't a detective, but I'd built my auto repair business from nothing, and I wasn't about to let some HOA tyrant bully me. I hired a private investigator, Lucas Grant, at $200 a day, recommended by my buddy Nate, a lawyer. Lucas called me 2 days later, his voice buzzing with excitement. "Ethan, your HOA lady's been dropping $50,000 over 6 years on ground-penetrating radar rentals. She's not just poking around, she's hunting for something specific." The GPS coordinates in the rental records pointed to a precise 10 by 10-foot spot in the reeds. This wasn't about lake management. Margaret was guarding something buried there. I tried the reasonable route, emailing the HOA board for clarification on fishing permits. Margaret's response was unhinged. Within 48 hours, she'd hired a security firm at $500 a day, installed motion sensor floodlights aimed at the reeds, and slapped protected wetland signs around that exact spot. In a town where the worst crime was kids' TPNG mailboxes, this was overkill. Neighbors started whispering. Dorothy Ellis, an 80-year-old who'd lived here forever, pulled me aside during a walk. "Ethan, Margaret's done this every July for years. Always that same spot, always looking like she's seen a ghost." Dorothy had thought it was grief over her husband, Victor, who died in 2016, but the pattern was too deliberate. The HOA treasurer, Carl Jensen, cracked under pressure and showed me budget records, $50,000 in unapproved spending on security, all tied to that tiny patch of land. Lucas's big break came when he traced the radar rentals to geological surveys from 2001. They weren't random, they mapped underground cavities, searching for hollow spaces at specific coordinates. He called me at 1 a.m., voice trembling. "Ethan, there's a sealed limestone cavern under that lake, marked as a construction hazard in '01. She's not just protecting something, she's pinpointing burial sites." My heart sank. My dad, Thomas Carter, died in a 1997 construction accident, a workplace safety failure with no real answers. The idea that Margaret's obsession might tie to something like that hit too close to home. I dove into city records, paying Nate $250 an hour to help. We found the Willow Creek Community Center project, approved July 1st, 2001, but halted 3 days later on July 4th for soil instability. The geological survey from that project? Mysteriously archived off-site. Suspicious didn't begin to cover it. Victor Voss, Margaret's husband, was the councilman who'd pushed the emergency shutdown. No debate, no review, just a cover story about environmental concerns. Newspaper archives turned up a gut punch. 3 workers, Diego Alvarez, Mark Thompson, and an unnamed laborer, vanished during that 2001 project. The official story? They'd relocated for better jobs. I tracked down James Holt, the retired city engineer, at a diner. He whispered, "That project stopped overnight. We were ordered to seal the cavern and never talk about what we saw." He'd kept a copy of the survey, showing a massive limestone network under the lake, big enough to swallow equipment and people. I confronted Margaret at her doorstep with the clippings. What happened to those workers in 2001? Her face crumpled, tears spilling as she stammered. Victor was haunted by it until he died. Nightmares about men falling, screams sealed in concrete. She stopped, realizing she'd said too much. That night, someone trashed my garage, wiping my computer files. But they missed a clipping in my dad's old toolbox, hinting at a bigger conspiracy. I wasn't backing down. I called an emergency HOA meeting, armed with a PowerPoint of Margaret's spending, timelines, and witness statements. The room gasped at the $50,000 in unapproved funds. Dorothy's jaw dropped. Carl looked like he'd faint. Margaret tried her usual sob story, claiming I was harassing her, but the evidence was undeniable. Then she upped the ante, offering $900,000 through a shell company, Willow Investments, to buy my shops. I traced it to her trust fund in a day. When that failed, she sabotaged my business, costing me a $40,000 contract by calling me unstable. She even filed a restraining order, claiming I was a threat. At the hearing, Nate shredded her case with our documentation, and the judge saw through her lies. The community turned, demanding answers. Then came the bombshell. The city was auctioning Willow Creek on July 20th, 2022, starting at $400,000. Ownership included subsurface rights, meaning I could demand a police investigation of the site. I liquidated my 2 best shops and mortgaged my house for $700,000, risking everything. Margaret countered, cashing out $650,000 in investments. Dorothy rallied 50 neighbors to sign a petition supporting my bid. Local news exploded with headlines like, "HOA finds sparks lake auction war." Margaret's desperation peaked. She vandalized my shop with "murderer" in red paint and tried to cancel the auction, claiming safety concerns. On July 7th, Dorothy caught her at the reeds, sobbing, "I'm sorry, I tried to keep you safe. I knew then there were bodies down there." Auction day was electric. The courthouse was packed, residents, reporters, city officials. Margaret walked in clutching a certified check, looking like she was facing a firing squad. I opened at $400,000. She hit back with $500,000. I pushed to $600,000, then $700,000, my limit. Margaret matched it, hands shaking. I took a breath and bid $701,000, every cent I had plus one. As the auctioneer counted down, Margaret snapped, screaming, "You're destroying innocent families." Her breakdown was raw, public, and devastating. A reporter asked why the lake mattered so much. That broke her. "Families never buried their loved ones," she shrieked. July 7th, 2001, the cavern collapsed. Diego Alvarez, Mark Thompson, Lee Chun, sealed in concrete. Victor and Mayor Sullivan covered it up, told families they'd left town. She confessed to Victor's suicide, his notes detailing 2 other sites, Pineview Park, 1999, and Hillcrest, 2004, where workers vanished. The courthouse erupted. FBI agents detained her as cameras rolled. The feds took over Willow Creek, finding 3 bodies in the cavern, then 4 more at the other sites. Margaret faced federal charges accessory to homicide, obstruction, conspiracy, and state charges for embezzlement. Civil suits hit $5 million. The investigation exposed a web of corruption, bribes, fake reports, sealed records. Families finally got answers. Diego's son, now 40, wept learning his father hadn't abandoned them. Mark's sister held a Navy honor ceremony. Lee's family, long citizens, buried him with traditional rites. I donated the land's $2 million research value to the families. Willow Creek is now a free community space, with a memorial garden honoring the 7 men. Every July 7th, we gather to remember. This wasn't just a finite, it was a fight for truth. But what do you think? Should Margaret rot in prison for life? Or was she a victim of her husband's secrets? Could you risk everything for justice like I did? And what if there are more sites out there, still hidden? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe because the next story might be even wilder.